Hi, in this video we learned how to create multiple app variants that can run on the same device. So let's get started. So back to our project, and the first thing that we need to do to be able to install multiple app variants on the same device, is give each variant a unique bundle identifier, or in the case of Android, a unique package name. So as you can see here, we have hard-coded this bundle identifier, which is ideally the one that I want to use in production environments. But this won't be scalable if I want to have multiple variants like development, preview, and production. So in those cases, we want to change this bundle identifier and package dynamically depending on the environment that we are developing. So let's go ahead and change this app.json file. Instead of being a static file, we want to be able to dynamically change these variables depending on the environment. So let's go ahead and change the name to be app.config.ts, and let's just get rid of the JSON. If you're fancy, you can change this to be TypeScript like so and hit enter. Now, once I do that, you can see that I get a bunch of errors, and that is because this is not a JSON anymore. So the first thing that I want to do is just get rid of this Expo part. So I'll remove that and then come all the way down here and remove that last curly braces, and then export default this. So if I hit save now, this is going to be formatted for me. And since we are using TypeScript, we can actually type this like this. So let me just come down here and close these parentheses. And now we can import this from Expo config and this as well. So now we have the configuration fully typed, and we can just use the same config that we had before from here. And then on top of that, rewrite the values that we want to change. So in this case, it will be the name, the slug, bundle identifier. Okay, so now we have this fancy app.config.ts file that we can change dynamically based on the environment. So let's go ahead and create a function up here. And let's check the doc that we are following. This is the doc that we're following, multiple app variants. I'm going to scroll down and let's define these two variables. So I'll just paste them in here. Now these variables are going to help us to identify if we are using a development or preview environment. And based on that, we want to create a bundle identifier for our applications and package for Android. So let's copy this function, get unique identifier, and let's go back to the file and add paste this in here. So we have two functions. One is to get the unique identifier, and the other one is to get the app name. Of course, we need to update the bundle identifier to match the one that we want to use. So in this case, I'm using com.veto@expo.splitease. So let's go ahead and update this, and then in here and in here for production. All right, let's do the same for the app name. So we're going to have 3 names, and that's it. Let me remove these duplicates. So if the flag is dev is enabled, we're going to be using the .env and then .preview for preview. And if none of those is set, we're going to be using the production environment. Same for the name. So let's go ahead and update this. Instead of having the hard-coded name, we're going to call the get app name function. Same for the bundle identifier and the package. All right, and I think that's it. Of course, you can change more variables in here if you need to, but I think we're good for now. So let's go ahead and hit save. Okay, so once we have this set up, we can now go to the eas.json file and specify the environment that we want to use for each profile. So we have development, iOS emulator, preview, and production. In here, I can add the env, and we can pass the app variant. So the app variant for this one is going to be development. Since iOS emulator profile extends development, we don't need to do anything in here. So we can just go straight to the preview. And after this, we can add the environment preview. So for production, we don't need to set anything, because if you remember, if we don't set these two, automatically it's going to return the production values. So this is all the configuration that we need. Now let's create a couple builds so that we can test this out. I'll stop my server and clear the terminal. And now I'll say EAS build. Now in this case, I won't specify the platform because I want to build for Android and iOS at the same time, but I want to specify the profile. So in this case, I'll be using development. So let me change this. Now let's go ahead and hit enter. Notice that right now we are using technically the production values. Splitease is the name, and I'm using the bundle identifier that I do want to use for production. So in this case, this is going to create basically like a new application with the development bundle identifier, and name. So let's go ahead and hit enter. This is asking me if I want to build for all platforms, and I'll say yes, or just hit enter. And as you notice, we get this nice environment variable log that is letting me know that we're using development and the app variant was loaded correctly. So it's asking me to create a new key store, and this is expected because this is going to be kind of like a new Android application, right? So we're going to have two in this case. This is going to be for the package that we are specifying here, which at the end of the day is going to be this one right here, .dev, right? So let's go ahead and say yes. This is going to kick off the build for Android. All right, and this is actually asking me for my credentials for iOS. This is expected as well, since for development, we want to install this application on a real device. In this case, I'm not setting simulator, so that's why it's asking me for my credentials. So let's go ahead and log in with my credentials, select my company. I'll reutilize my certificate and then select the devices that I want to test this build on. So I'll select all of them and hit enter. Now we just need to wait a little bit. And in the meantime, I want to mention that if we go ahead and start the server right now, so I'll say npx expo start in my local environment and then run this, this is going to be using the production environments since we are not setting anything, right? So everything else is going to work just fine. But sometimes you want to use the development environment for your local development. So in that case, you can just go to the package.json and create a new script. So we can leave this start or we can delete it if you want to. But in this case, I will add a dev, and you can also have a preview if you want to. And this is going to set the environment. Now, I'll just go ahead and remove the preview since it's not going to be needed for local development. Let's go ahead and hit save. And now let's stop the server. And now we can say bun run dev. Of course, I'm using bun, but if you are using anything else, just go ahead and run npm or yarn dev. And let's hit enter. This is going to set the app variant, as you can see here, equal to development. Okay, now if I try to open this on my simulator, this is actually going to break because this application is not installed at the moment. We only have the production one. So in this case, we need to kick off a new build for the simulator, basically using this iOS simulator profile. So let's go ahead and do that. By the way, the other two builds are still in progress. And just like that, I'll just run again eas build. And then in this case, I do want to select the platform. And this is going to be for the iOS simulator. So let's go ahead and hit enter. And in this case, this is not going to ask me for my credentials since this is just a simulator build. As you can see, we also have the environment variable loaded for iOS simulator, which is going to be development at the end of the day. And now we just need to wait. All right, and the builds are ready. And this is the simulator one. So I can just go ahead and straight from my terminal, press the yes, and this is going to install it in here. Now, remember that we need to have the server running. So let me just go ahead and say bun run dev. This is a development build, if you remember. So let's start the server. And now let's run again this on iOS. In this case, this is working. And as you can see, it's asking me, do you want to open split ease in dev? And I'll say yes, open. And here we have it. All right, now let me get out of this screen. And you can see that now I have two. I have the production one, split ease, and split dev. And in split dev, I can do all my testing and things that I need to do for new features and test in a safe environment. Once I'm ready, I can kick off a new build for preview and then share that with my friends or teammates, right? And also we created a build for iOS devices. The Android one can work on a simulator. So let's just press yes here to run the Android. This is going to download the app and then install it on the Android device. All right, and here I have my Android emulator as well as my real iPhone. And let's go ahead and test this on the Android device. And as well, I'll go ahead and scan this QR code on my iOS. So let me open the camera and scan this QR code. This is going to open this link. And as you can see, I scanned the wrong one. So let me go back and I need to scan this one. Right, and I'll install split ease dev, and this should be working just fine. Now if I go to my home screen, I can see that the app is installing right now, and we can test both. Remember that I have the server running here, so this should be working fine. Okay, and the app is installed, as you can see there, and I'll open the app and this is going to load from this server in here. And if you are not able to see the server, you can just come here and scan this QR code again using your camera, and this should do it. Now in this case, I'm using dark mode, but I can change that. And this is how it looks. All right, so in this case, we have a dev build for Android, a real device on iOS, and we also have the simulator in here. So we have 3 of them, and we can quickly go to the index again and create a quick test. So let me go here and say test and hit save. And you can see that we get live reloading in all our devices on a development build. So this is great. That's it for this chapter. We learned how to create a dynamic bundle identifier and dynamic package based on the app environment to create multiple app variants and install them in the same device. I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.